Well, we are just going to get started now. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're so excited to start this discussion panel. My name is Corinne Pompey. I am the program coordinator here at Woman Made Gallery. Just everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So just for some background, if you're not familiar, we are a nonprofit organization that provides space for women and non-binary artists. We were founded in 1992 by Beata Minkowski and Kelly Hansen. And since then, we've shown the work of over 10,000 artists in over 475 exhibitions. So that's really exciting. So now I'm going to turn the focus to what we're here to talk about tonight. Um, Juried by Monica J. Brown and Donna Jackson, through a BIPOC lens, Decolonizing Feminism invites us to explore the intersection of race, gender, and identity through the work of Black, Indigenous, and women of color. This show is comprised of 35 artists, and it's all about engaging with the broader conversation around decolonization and creating space for voices that have long been underrepresented. So the whole purpose of this panel is to create a space where we can really just dig into the themes of the show. We're bringing together both the artists and the jurors to talk about race, gender identity, and cultural heritage, while also challenging how we think about feminism today. So ultimately, our goal is to spark some reflection and action so that we can all leave here with a deeper connection to these issues and how we can be part of the change, right? So now that we've set our intentions, we'll move on to getting to know our jurors. Monica J. Brown and Donna Jackson, we're so excited to have both of you here today. Monica J. Brown is a multidisciplinary artist who explores memory, history, and personal mythology. Her work has been exhibited nationally and internationally, and she's received numerous fellowships and grants. Her art is currently represented by Black Art in America and Sona Chicago Gallery. And we're also really lucky to have her on Woman Made's board of directors. Um, yes, claps, claps, claps. Um, we're also so excited to welcome Donna Jackson, founder of DMJ Studio, a creative studio focused on making art and culture accessible through public art and community projects. Donna's work highlights the narratives of women, people of color, and the experiences of middle and lower class city life. She also consults on brand identity and creates cultural experiences for nonprofits and artists. She currently works as a marketing specialist for Plymouth District Library. Thank you both for being here. Yay. Virtual claps. So now let's shift our attention to the selected artists who were featured in this exhibition. So we'll start with Ragni Agarwal. Ragni is an Indian American artist based in Los Angeles. Her work explores resilience and empowerment through a vibrant, playful style, obviously, that often juxtaposes themes of mental health and societal challenges. And all the pieces you'll see here, for those who don't know, are the pieces that were part of the exhibition. Next, we have Sequoya Hayes. Sequoia is a therapist, yoga teacher, and mixed media social practice artist. As a multimedia artist, she interrogates personal and collective identity, often using layered visual elements, as we see here. Next, we have Candace Hunter. Candace is a Chicago-based multimedia artist whose work often addresses themes of historical and cultural significance, particularly tied to the Black experience and feminist perspectives. Um, Next, we have Jessie. Born in Seoul, South Korea, and raised in the Bay Area of California, Jessie's practice blends Eastern and Western influences, often reflecting on identity and displacement. We're so excited to have everybody here with us tonight. So now that we've gotten to know a little bit more about our artists and our jurors, I'd like to open this discussion actually starting with our jurors. So I ask you, Monica and Donna, what inspired you both to create this exhibition, and how did you navigate the diverse range of works and artists to ensure that the show conveyed the themes that you pictured?
Monica, you want to go first? Sure. Um, I have some notes because I didn't want to miss any of the ideas that I was thinking about. Uh, feminism is deeply entrenched in social justice and politics. There's an emphasis on fighting to make the world a more equitable place. There's also another impetus that underlies that fighting spirit to bring equity into the world, to bring peace and balance into the world. And that is the nurturing spirit, the spirit that uplifts, encourages, protects, and infuses with love. I feel that love is at the basis of all of this desire to strive for justice, a place where everyone gets what they need. And for me, I look to the women who raised me, the women whose generational line I come through as examples of this. They're my first examples of BIPOC feminism, women who were spiritual without being dogmatic, women who cut against the grain in a time when that was not appropriate in the racist, misogynist world that they lived in. I'm thankful for my mother who embodied that love. She always said that love is a verb, more an action than an idea. And she modeled that in the way that she lived her life. And I'm thankful for her foresight in sharing with me the stories of the women who raised her. And through that lens, I've been able to see myself more clearly. And because of them, it's in my DNA to be a feminist. And in coming up with the idea for this exhibition, I wanted to see what shape BIPOC feminism took for other artists through the multifaceted aspects of our identities, circumstances, and inspiration. And it means a lot to me that the applications that were received were across broad demographics of race, ethnicity, age, gender, sexuality, and ability. Um, and I wanted the show to reflect that diversity.
Um, I did this show because Monica asked me to. That's the first one. No, I mean seriously, that is a big part of it. But in my own work, um, it was just the title and what this show is about really connects with my own work. I've always been kind of looking for what is feminism, where does it fit for me? Looking at the differences between feminism, womanism, and then this as decolonization of like all of these things and why they are all needed, why they are all different. And then to visualize that thing, like to actually see that thing on walls and paintings and creations, like that was very interesting to me. And I wanted to be a part of making that or seeing that come together. And I just, as Monica said, I loved the diversity, which it should be, of course, but to see the diversity across our country and to come up with this collection of work. So this is really Monica's brainchild, and I was just very honored and glad that she brought me on board to be able to be a part of it.
Well, Donna, you're the first person that I thought of. We've worked together before.
Yeah.
August, Donna has invited me in to be part of some of her exhibitions and discussions. So that was a no brainer.
That's beautiful. I love that. Well, so I kind of want to open this up to the artists now, talking about this mention of diversity and the variety of entries. Whoever wants to start, I'm curious, what does it mean for you to be part of this exhibition? And how do you kind of see it contributing to this larger conversation? I'm gonna pick someone.
I can I go first?
Absolutely.
Um, so when I saw this writing, like the prompt writing, I thought it was really beautifully written. And like I immediately was like, I want to be part of this. I like what even I don't get this to like be part of the show. I wanna like encourage like a lot of emerging artists or even like the people who carefully think about like this topic of the conversation keep going on. So it was really important for me to be just even a part of it. I was personally really excited about this show a lot. So I'm very thankful for both of you, like Monica and Donna, and then also like Woman Made Gallery. It's a beautiful space. It was my first time being there too. Like the space was beautiful. And the mission is beautiful too. And in terms of being part of the dialogue, I think this topic is has to be worked on like for a long time, for not I'm young and I'm emerging artist, but even like the next generation and even like more and more, I think this dialogue has to be add on. And I am reflecting by like so many different like feminist artists before me. And I find, oh, like this can be added more because things are changing. The political like situation is changing. Like people conversation is changing. So I think it was really important for my practice personally too that like kind of pause at this moment and then like what does it mean for me as an artist and what does it mean like for me as just person like being um like to move forward with my personal dialogue too.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Anyone else want to share?
I can share.
Yeah.
When I read the artist call, it's literally everything that I try to convey in my art always. My art is all about, they're kind of like love letters to all the women in my life who have carried me and made me who I am and like picked me up when I couldn't, felt like I couldn't survive. And just all the struggles that we've all collectively been through. And so this call was beautiful and it felt really aligned with like everything I want to pursue through my art and what I'm trying to share. And so thank you for putting it out there and sharing all of this work.
I can also hop in if that's okay, and add same sentiment when I saw the call. I was I was overjoyed really because there aren't many call for arts that have this particular focus. And so I was like, oh yes, this is my jam. I'm gonna see what happens. So yes, I agree with everyone else. Thank you so much for dreaming this up, and creating the opportunity. For me, this opportunity uh, presented me with like a way to kind of break out of my shell too. I've been exhibiting a little bit since the pandemic again. I've shared in my more recent like artist residency experiences that about 20 years ago, I was in art school and had to step away for some grief kind of reasons and family reasons. And so to be back in my art practice and centering Black feminism in my work, I feel like that is kind of a testament, if you will, to the creative process, the creative journey, not giving up, continuing to move forward. That when we get discouraged or when life happens to, you know, try again. And so with this piece that was included in the exhibition, it's focused on some of my work related to not only just rest and encouraging like mental health and self-care, but also specifically destigmatizing psychedelics, plant medicine, and those pathways being destigmatized, for healing for BIPOC communities. So yeah, I hope that rambly response to the question, like,
It was perfect. Thank
okay.
you.
So, hi, everybody. First of all, I want to thank the jurors for gathering so many wonderful women artists for this show. I've shown at Woman Made for off and on for about 20 years. And so it's always good to come back home because Woman Made is one of those places that I call home. And so that was exciting. So I'm always looking at their calls to see if I fit. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I wasn't sure if I fit for this call. I am an amateur historian. I'm trained as a visual artist and also an anthropologist, and history is very important to me. And I have a long lens, and I'm not so forgiving in that long lens. And so one of my long lenses is that I will never call myself a feminist because I know the history of that name and the people who started a feminist world. And we were Black people, Black women, routinely and systematically kept out of those ranks. I even went to a couple of the women's marches and I looked, and again, it was systemically we were kept out of that. And so this is not something I revel in. It's not something I call myself. I am a womanist. I am a Black woman who believes in Black women and believes in women. But I'm very careful about my white sisters, about which ones are allies, because very few are. And I think that this political race that just happened let us know that. If we didn't know it before, we know it now. So I was betwixt and between whether, because of the title, if I was even going to apply. But I knew what was the meat behind it. And so I said yes, that I would. I'm done. That's my rant for the evening.
Snaps, snaps.
Yes, thank you for that, Candace. Absolutely. I agree with you. I did reference in the call the womanist movement in the call for art as a way to distinguish
And that's one
between.
of the reasons why I think that I went with you, because I was just like, okay, we're being clear about that. And so thank you for that.
Thank you, Candace.
Oh, that was nice. I like that. So we've kind of talked about, well, first of all, Monica and Donna, I just want to applaud you both because obviously based off of this feedback just now, this exhibition was kind of exactly what a lot of artists needed. So it was just a great space to explore perspectives and it's beautiful. It's really, really awesome. So now that we've kind of talked about decolonizing and what that means to be part of this exhibition, I kind of want to open it up to how these ideas intersect with broader conversations, like race, culture, and representation. So I would like to touch on what Monica and Jessie kind of talked about, this idea of generational knowledge being passed down in the women being passed down from the women in your family and what it means to be creating as a BIPOC artist now. So, Jessie, if you want to start, how do you see your work as this intergenerational dialogue? You know, how does it speak to past generations of BIPOC women who might not have been represented?
So in my practice, I often think about work as an object. And I think because, in the history, like women have been like very objectified in the figurational painting. And I used to paint more so like realistically, like more of like reference like from the picture, and then more like juxtapose like different like scenes. And later I became more aware of like what does the body do? Like what does like the representation of the figure do, and what the audience like interact with the object. So that idea of the object became really important to me, and I started just sketching a lot in my studio. And the pattern, what happened in my work was measuring, because just the idea of the measuring and then the gesture of the measuring just came up a lot in my drawings. So I started drawing a lot of figure of like whom measuring the space within like pictorial um plane in the painting. And I like when I was doing it, I thought a lot about like there are a lot of standards, like what does it mean to be a woman? There was very constructed norm of like the society. For me personally, I immigrated to the United States when I was like 16, 17, and um I think like I tried to put myself in certain way like to fit in like society. And of course, like in that society, um those norms were set by a lot before, like a lot different powers, a lot different like standards. So I guess like reflecting the artists from the past is more like breaking those boundaries and reconstructing norms like in my practice. And then I like also want to ask other artists and also like audiences who do see my work, what boundaries do you have? Like what norms did you put your like, you know, did you like build it in yourself that is still like reconstructing? Um so it's not really like my work is not statement. It's more like ongoing questions and answers and questions and answers. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And I think that kind of connects to Sequoia, your work, because you talk a lot about kind of conversations across generations. So would you mind sharing how your techniques talk about this theme?
Yeah, thank you so much. So with my work and specifically this piece, Light Codes, um, one of the things that I attempt to create are spaces where folks can have conversations, around like whatever topic or theme, the piece is. And so for this one, as I mentioned, is related to self-care and destigmatization, right? And so for me, thinking about this intergenerational piece, most of my work centers Black women, femme, non-binary identified bodies. And for me growing up, there weren't a lot of conversations about what women in our family did specifically for self-care or how to take care of ourselves. I come from a long line of caregivers and folks who have been bodies that have been socialized to be caregivers. And what comes with that is generations of women that self-sacrifice. And so with this particular piece, I'm hoping to encourage, intergenerational conversations about how folks are taking care of themselves, how Black women, are supporting themselves, even the things that are taboo, in our community. So like psychedelics or cannabis or other types of plant medicine, or, again, whatever might be considered taboo or controversial as it relates to generation, culture, integrating those into our daily conversation. So that's what I'm hoping this piece conveys, and that, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's great. That kind of connects. I want to bring Ragni into this conversation to kind of build off of that. It's kind of speaking of women self-sacrificing for the better good of those around us. I think we all know this a little too well. We at least know somebody, or maybe it's ourselves. Ragni, your kind of like bold visual language conveys a lot of themes of resilience. So I'm curious to know how you approach reclaiming stories to not only decolonize feminist histories, but also make them resonate with audiences today.
So my particular piece is from it's one of four pieces. It's part of my collection called Bad Betis, which in Hindi means daughters. And it kind of started from this like when we were young, we were often told as daughters to like be seen and not heard, and to stay quiet and not ask a lot of questions and just be quiet. And I, throughout my art practice and throughout growing up, I've kind of, for a while, was just like super quiet and wanted to blend in and just put my head down and do what I was told. And then I've slowly started to come back to myself through
Mm.
my art practice and like take up space. And I think such a big part of resilience is being okay with feeling joy and not feeling like you need to earn it, and having fun and being like colorful and not needing to like mute yourself to society's palettes and practices and just boldly taking up space. Um, so that's why my art is often very colorful and very youthful, but I just think that like so much of like what we have to struggle with, especially as BIPOC women, is adhering to like certain standards of what makes art good or what makes color palettes good or whatever. And like that's just not part of like what I feel inside and what so many people feel inside and want to express. And so I think that's kind of like part of resilience is like letting yourself just enjoy that, enjoy the color, enjoy taking up space, and not always trying to fit into certain boxes. But yeah, does that answer that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, this adhering to certain standards of what it means to make good art as a BIPOC woman is really important and kind of leads into my next topic, um, which means like how to navigate the art world today as BIPOC artists. So how do you guys define success in a field that often demands you to compromise? You know, how do you push back against these various pressures that might challenge the integrity of your work?
I want to share like one
Mm-hmm.
anecdote I had. Um, so when I painted the figure, I had one of my friend, like I asked for the feedback, and then one of my friends said like, oh, like, but it it doesn't look like Asian, like, the color of the skin, or it doesn't look like you, or it doesn't look like it's too white, or it's too black, it's too yellow, like it needs like a certain color. And that really stayed in my head for a long time, and still now, apparently. What like why do I have to, like, what does it mean like painting the certain color of the skin to be represented, and even in the painting, because painting is not real, like it's something else. It's what I'm trying to convey through my work is something different, but like why people focus on the skin so much, or even like obsession of it. So in the beginning of my practice, I removed um all the skin colors. I didn't want to like be part of this conversation. I just wasn't ready for it. I didn't like know what to answer, like how to deal with it. And later I started speaking up more about what like does the skin mean for me, and hear like, hey, like, what you see and what I see kind of like all kind of mixed in together. And when you say this, when you like recognize person and then like call them as just the color, that's like super generalized. And then how do I interpret that through like my visual language was a big part of it. And then I keep asking questions like to fellow artists, like, what do you think about these? And what's your take on like certain things that I think is a concern, what's happening in the art world or even like in the society. So keeping the loop of the conversation, I think, is like the key. And engaging with the community is like really the most important part being artists, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Can I add to that?
Mhm.
I have a similar way of when I started painting too, like when it comes to skin color, I veered away from using natural skin colors because I didn't want to be put in a box of being just a Black artist. But something that I find is that regardless of what you do, your culture is going to come out in that painting. Who you are is going to come out in the painting anyway, purple, blue, brown, whatever. Because I'm more than sure you can look at my paintings and probably come to the conclusion that I'm a Black girl at some point. And I feel like what you're going to what you're seeing or experience is really America. That's that experience, why they're putting you in the box of your art must look like this as a Asian woman.
Mhm.
And it doesn't. That this is the box that we're in, and this is the box I think we're trying to break with exhibitions and works that we're doing right now. So you're right, we have to continue. We have to keep questioning why does the skin have to look like this? Because as you know, Asian people have all colors of skin, just like Black and brown. We have all shades of skin. That does not define us. So these kind of conversations, these types of works, and you staying open to questioning, all of us staying open to the questioning is part of the process to break that mold. So that question is never part of of our creative process as we move on, or maybe the next generation moves on.
So then, am I understanding correctly that you feel that it's true that achieving freedom as an artist requires kind of like the destruction of specific identities or labels? Or do you feel like it's about expanding them and embracing them? Or maybe a little bit of both. I don't know. Oh, you're on mute, Donna.
I think it's both. I love my Black label. I don't want to give that up.
Absolutely.
But I also want to have enjoy all the labels that my fellow artists have placed on themselves, and then that label of just human, like that, enjoying that label. And I don't think a lot of us can get to the meat of that label because we get stuck in the boxes of the others, the other labels. So no, I think it's a combination of all of it because we are a combination of it all, right? We're human, we're we're female, we're binary, we're all these things. And so we should be able to enjoy being it all and be accepted as it all, and not just put in the one box or the two boxes that this larger society say that you are part of. I think that's the challenge that we're working through. And I believe we can get through that.
Yeah. Anybody have anything to add to that?
I just want to say that I agree. I feel like uh, the idea, labels can be limiting and they can also be tribes. And it's kind of nice sometimes to have tribes. This is why we have Woman Made Gallery.
Yeah.
But then also, I don't want to be limited by what others feel my capacity is based on those identities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Any other notes to add on to this? So this talk of identity is central to everybody's work, obviously. So I kind of want to ask, how does that tension show up in your practice, if any? I know we've touched on a little bit, but I kind of want to hear from Sequoya, Ragni, or Candace about specifically that, if one of you cares to start out.
Yeah, I can hop in. Um, so, and this kind of piggybacks on the last question about success. And so one of the kind of disjointed stories that I told was about, how I started in art like 20 years ago. And then at the top of the pandemic, I returned to my practice. And so I feel like what is important as it relates to identity is my creative practice has been, is an aspect of my identity for me. And so I feel like when I share the story about coming back to my practice after 20 years, again, it highlights kind of this journey, how, creative practices, they can evolve over time, but also that it's a relationship, and one of the things that's been central in not only me returning to my creative practice, but putting myself out there, being a part of residencies, applying to call for arts like this has been that connection to relationship. And so when I was looking at the question about identity, and how that shows up in my work, I feel like relationship is a central theme as well in my work, and not only like relationship to community, but relationship to self. And how we get off the path. We get off the path, we get disconnected, and how we come back to ourselves is all a part of the process. I think that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to separate identity from your practice. For me personally, I was working in tech for many years and my soul died. And art was truly just for me as a mental health tool to bring me back to life, basically. And it ended up becoming my career, but that's not why I do it. And it's not really like why I started it. And it really helped me like find myself again. So it's really hard to separate my identity from it because they're very intertwined. And it definitely like brought me back to life. So yeah, they're completely linked.
Yeah, and I think that's the case for a lot of people too. Candace, did you want to add anything? You're on mute.
I
There
kept
we
trying to, we've got the wood shop is right next door to
go.
me, and they're teens cutting wood. So I kept trying to keep that sound out of our Zoom. Um, I don't, I don't, wow. Okay, so I am who I am, and I've never questioned that. I've never questioned what I do. I've never questioned why someone may or may not like what I do. My work is usually two different kind of paths. So it's installation work that usually talks about a lesser known story, an injustice, to Black people in these Americas, or it's about the joy of Black girls. So both of these things are equally important to me. So during the COVID, when I could not get to my studio, my daughter had returned home from college. So now there are 3 people living under one roof, and they're all artists. Oh my God. So I had to quickly figure out what it is that I can do in this space that's going to bring me joy. And Black girls are joyful. They're just these wonderful, wonderful little people. And so I created a space within my space that was literally 3 feet by 4 feet. That was it. And what fits in that space is a 20-inch square canvas. So I started doing brown-limbed girls. And, talking about skin tone, I wasn't concerned with that because the brown that I used actually was not a brown at all. It's like the deepest purple. It's a mix of about 4 different colors, the deepest purple. And when it's set next to any other color, it just reads brown. If it's on a white surface, you go, oh, that's purple. But if next to any other color, it reads brown. And so that's what I liked about it. And the girls did not have eyes or mouths. They were just these silhouettes that were in joyful positions with lots of color around them. And those lovely little girls kept my life going during COVID. Because the city of Chicago saw them and used them for billboards for COVID awareness. Stella Jones Gallery in New Orleans reached out to me and said, I want to do a show with you. We did that show there. Then she said, I want you to do a show in Oakland. And this is all out of my little tiny space. And since shelter in place till early this year, I created a little more than 100 of these 20-inch square canvases. So they paid for my child's college tuition, they paid my rent, and they kept me smiling. And everybody in my house happy. We were happy with one another. So those girls kept me. And so these 2 that are in the show are an offshoot of the Brown Limb Girls. They're a little different because they're masked and other things are going on with them. There's more humanity in their faces than the original pieces. But this isn't the work that I normally did. And now I've returned to the work that I used to do, which are work that's often abstract, that is asking questions about what happened, why did it happen? So the work that I'm doing right now is about the displacement of 60,000 Black families when the Dan Ryan Expressway was built. And it's a piece of history in Chicago that is rarely talked about. I can find very little on it. And so I've been able to delve into that piece of our history and doing memory teas here in my studio with lovely women coming in to talk about when they were girls and this thing happened to them. So my work has these 2 different levels. One is this slightly figurative, fun kind of work. And then the other one, which is really questioning and installation based. So I work, 2 totally different ways. But I think both are always about love of Blackness and love of being a Black girl in Chicago.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I really like that project. I can't wait to see it. I know Sequoia, I saw you shaking your head like, oh my God, yeah, that's amazing. Well, amazing. So we have Candace creating space out of nothing, right? Ragni mentioned the difficulty of separating identity and art, and Sequoia mentioned the self-sacrifice by women in her life. So just by that, it's clear that responding to these social challenges can be equally exhausting as it is liberating, right? A lot of marginalized artists kind of face this pressure to constantly be working or speaking out, especially during periods of heightened political tension. So, with the outcome of our recent election, I want to ask you guys, how do you all make sure that your creative process doesn't lead to burnout? And how do you take the time for rest and self-care? Sequoia, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. Um, you know, I was thinking about this, and I feel like for me, one of the things that's been helpful, is kind of going back to something that I mentioned about my creative, like I think about my creative process like a relationship, because I had this like stark stopping point to my previous creative life and the reasoning behind that, and then the kind of parallel experiences that I had with the art world leading up to coming back to my practice in 2020. It's made me think about it from a conflict perspective. And so, you know, when we're in conflict, when I'm in conflict, take it to myself, when I'm in conflict, you know, what are the things that I do to take care of myself? What are the things that I do to be accountable? You know, what are the things that I do to extend acceptance and forgiveness? And so when I think about this question about burnout, like these are the things that I'm also, you know, allowing space for too, that I am potentially going to get burnt out, especially if I'm like working on something, but then that's when the forgiveness and the acceptance piece comes in, you know. And yeah, and then thinking about this other piece about conflict, you know, that there are times where it's going to be like some resistance, some tension areas, and like what has been supportive for me during those times. I like pile those self-care practices on when I feel that resistance and tension. I also call in like knowing that those cycles happen, and yeah, and that it all levels out at some point, you know, that this isn't, the conflict isn't going to be forever, the burnout isn't going to be forever, and to yeah, just center that cycle.
Beautiful. Ragni, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this since your work is centered on mental health and rest as self-care. Do you have any thoughts for us?
I'm still not that great at it, but I'm learning a lot about it. I one thing I've really been doing is being a lot more honest about how I'm feeling instead of just always saying I'm fine and I can handle it and I can do it. I'm really a lot more honest about saying when I feel burnt out, when I feel tired, when I want to say no. I really try to say no. That's something I'm really intentional about these days. I'm also really calling in my community and telling them to help me stay accountable to that. Like if I want to say no to something, don't let me be like, sure, I'll just do it, you know, because that's usually what I try. I usually have a tendency to just say yes when I really mean no. Um, but and also just having fun. I try to build that into my weekly schedule as like I need fun things that I love doing, even if it's just like taking an evening and listening to music or hanging out with my sister, whatever it is, just finding moments of joy that help build me back up, even when I think I don't have time. We do have time, and they actually make me much better at my practice and everything when I take the time to do that stuff. But
Yeah,
I'm a work in progress. So
we all are. We all
Yeah.
absolutely are. There's always room for joy, right?
yeah.
Awesome. Candace, did you want to say something about this?
So all of my life, my signature line, not all of my life, since email came out, my signature line has been sunshine and laughter,
Mm,
because I have always believed that if one is not laughing, one is not living. And when shit wants to come at you, you laugh at it and you keep laughing and you keep moving forward, because there are all sorts of entities and devils and things wanting to come at you from all sorts of angles and corners to stop you from what you were put here to do. And so the best way to stop them is to laugh in their face. You don't slap anybody, you don't call them out, just laugh at them and keep moving forward. And so my prescription in life for me, not for anybody else, is to keep moving forward with light and with laughter. And that's how I've always lived my life. Maybe it's because I had a mother who was a laugher. Everybody said, oh, May's laugh. So I grew up with that girl, and I'm that girl now. And so it's what I do, and it's what keeps everything else at bay.
I think that made us all feel good.
But I do want to say something to one of my artists. I can't remember who talked about we're conditioned to care for others.
Mm-hmm.
I've only had 2 jobs in life, and they were both only for 18 months. I was not built to work for somebody. But one of my jobs was I worked for this organization that I designed the program, and it was a mentoring program for young mothers at risk entering the world of work. And often I got young Black girls telling me that what they wanted to do was to be a CNA, was to be a preschool teacher, and it was always the lowest rung of whatever caregiving that was. And I would pull them to the side and I said, so tell me why you want to do that. And so most times they didn't know. And I said, is it because that's all you've seen? And they might agree with me. They might say yes. And I go, so let's see something else. So I took it upon myself to make sure that all of these young women who were under my charge in this mentoring program, that I took them into museums and I walked them through them. And I talked about materials and I talked about geography and lands and the peoples. And then I take them to really lovely lunches where they probably had never gone before that had table linens. And I said, so this is how we do this. And so it was my business to expand their world so they could see something more than that small world that they had been given. And often that world is telling them, you need to care for somebody else. That's the only road open for you. And I would say it's not. Let's find out what really brings you joy and then go after that. And so, I do it for myself. I did it for other young women. And as I meet young women now as an artist who want to talk to me about artists, I talk about, so what are we doing to bring you joy? So I've never been so it's a new world where the self-care and those words are used all the time, but I use that as life always. That you've got to care about yourself and you've got to find the joy for yourself.
That's beautiful advice. I'm curious if anybody else has advice to young BIPOC artists who might be feeling overwhelmed or discouraged by everything going on, either politically or socially, or just the challenges ahead. Maybe advice to your younger self. I don't know.
Okay, I would like to. No, I
Yeah.
just finished talking. So I had a wonderful young woman in my studio earlier who was really on the verge of tears about feeling very fragile and brittle with what is going on in this world. And so I could have said to her, honey, it's okay. And instead I turned around. I've got a real silly wig in here in the studio. I put the wig on and turned around and she fell out. She cracked up so hard because I turned into a clown for her to say, all of this really doesn't matter. What matters is the right now, the right here, and how we respond to one another. And so if we respond to one another with joy, then that's what we get back and that becomes our shield. And I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm gonna drink my tea.
Who else wants to add on to Candace there?
And I also think we shouldn't be afraid to express our anger too. I think we often are told, especially as women, to not be angry, but we are, and it's okay to express that too. I told my sister the other day she was feeling really shitty about everything, and I just was like, "Do you want to scream? Let's go outside and just scream at the top of our lungs." And it really helped. It really helped. So,
Did the
yeah.
screaming get you to joy?
Yeah, then we started laughing a lot after that. But we needed to scream first. Yeah.
Um, I think that my message to my younger self would be, um, or anyone listening, to not compartmentalize myself, that my bigness, bigness, bigness is okay. Um, yeah, be your whole self.
Jessie, do you want to chime in here?
Um, for me, it's always like the community. Like it's the community who made who I am now, and then who like gave me like when I didn't have affirmation myself, like it was a community like they gave me the affirmation. And I remember like in 2019, like after 2016, and then like we like me and my friends, and then like we started talking. And in 2019, when the COVID lockdown was happening, we co-founded a collective called We Are People. And then we just started making. We just like started talking, and then just sometimes we'll talk for like hours and hours just about world and how we feel. So sharing with whom care and sharing with the people, like you care, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all for sharing. Monica or Donna, do you have something that you want to add to this little bit about advice?
I would just say keep going, keep going, keep going. And then there's also times when you can't go. And I think to not be um, afraid or disappointed or hard on yourself when there's that ebb and the flow. That's always going to come, and then it will always return to the flow. And I've had super, super, super long ebbs. And when I was my younger self, I would always get on myself. How can I call myself an artist if I'm not making anything, if I haven't made anything in a while? And then I realized that life is art. Everything you do, you can do in an artful way, from the way that you prepare meals for yourself to the way that you dress, the way you move through the world, the way that you interact with others, that the artist can be in your lifestyle. And don't be afraid when rest comes, rest and keep going.
I totally agree with that. I've been lately, I started a new position, and prior to that, I was freelancing. So, um, what art is, or being an artist is, it got redefined by my life and lifestyle. So that ebb and flow, like you are always an artist. Like that is, it's just like we were talking about being these identifiers. Artist is you're always that. And then there's these other things that you are too. And I sometimes think when some of us might feel when we have particular jobs or careers, or we're doing particular things, that takes away our artist identifier. We're not an artist anymore because we are doing these other things, and that's not true. So I think I would tell my younger self that you are always an artist, that all the things in life are there for you to become a better artist and take all of it in. And when it's time for you to step in front of that canvas, take it, enjoy that experience, you know. We talk about masterpieces too, like we're all trying to create that masterpiece. And I think you hear one thing or the other, like not every piece you make is a masterpiece, but it is. It's you really getting to know yourself, which is what I heard over and over again. It might not be the $1 million piece, but it is still a masterpiece because when you walk away, you're most likely going to be a different person than you were before you stood in front of that canvas or before you did that collage or that illustration or what have you. So I think those are the two things I would tell my younger self, that you're always an artist and everything that you create, you're going to become a different person or a different individual after that. So therefore it is a masterpiece because of that.
Yeah, I love that. So we have being your whole self, focusing on the right now, scream when you need to, lean on your community, don't be afraid to rest, and embracing the ways and the ebb and flow of life, right? These are all things that us as artists, we need to remember, but also it's our responsibility to teach the younger generation, right? Thank you guys for sharing that. Well, so that I know we're over a couple minutes, but as we wrap up, I just really want to emphasize, if it hasn't been emphasized already, just how crucial community is in this process and especially over the next few years. You know, this exhibition, every piece reflects the collective struggles and conversations that we all share. So coming together in spaces like this, whether it's virtual or not, whether it's artists, jurors, or community members, it just creates the chance for transformation. So I hope that today's discussion has inspired you all to stay engaged with these themes, this work, and with each other. So thank you all for attending. You will be able to find a recording of this panel on YouTube by tomorrow, so you can watch it as much as you want. Please come visit the gallery. We're open Thursday through Sunday, 12 to 5 in University Village on Halsted. We have an opening reception on Saturday at 4 o'clock. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have a great night and rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you.